Welcome back to Style of Play Football with myself, T Dot. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, please go and subscribe to the channel. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and also as well, give us a thumbs up, give us a like. We're continuing our World Cup sort of previews over the next couple of days. As I said last night, we did Group A yesterday. We're going to be looking at Group B and Group C today as well. There's some tasty fixtures amongst both groups. And before we get into that, let's get the groups up straight away and let's see who is playing who and when. So let's start with the groups first of all, as we did yesterday. So in Group B, we have England, Iran, USA, and Wales. In Group C, we have Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Poland. So some really good fixtures, or there should be some really good matches amongst both of those groups. I was speaking to someone offline the other day around England's group. Obviously, you know, the one of the favourites to win the World Cup. I think last night I checked, it was 7-1 for England to win. I mean, that's not all. It's not all in ends. You know, it's not a given that England will get out of that group. I think USA are very strong when we'll get onto their squad shortly. And Wales are always a dark horse. I think if you remember back to a couple of years ago in a major tournament, they got to the semi-finals, I think, of one of them. So you know, they are still a very good team as well. We have to respect them just as much as we have to respect Iran, who is a team that many, like I said yesterday about Qatar, will potentially see as the very, you know, the highest underdogs or one of the underdogs within the groups. But I think, you know, Iran, you know, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, many people may not know, you know, much about their teams, their qualifying pros, the route to the qualifications, or obviously for Iran and Saudi Arabia anyway, Qatar being the host nations didn't need to do that. But I think you look at both those groups, and there should be some mouth-watering fixtures. I mean, Argentina, Mexico, you know, South American fixture that should be really good. I think Poland as well will be a sort of fixture, especially for Mexico and Argentina, that they'll be hopefully mouth-watering and give us some entertainment. But let's start off with Group B. You know, let's see how we get on with Group B, and obviously that does include England, which is the group that I think a lot of us, especially if you're from England, is going to be having most attention on over the next couple of weeks or so, and hopefully get into the final. Group B is fixtures look like this. So we've got England, Iran next Monday, the 21st of November. Kickoff is at 1 p.m. So some of you may miss that. Bit of a strange kickoff time, but obviously time difference is the reason for that. So USA Wales will be the evening kickoff at 7 p.m. I do think that's a really good fixture. I think, you know, if Wales can get a result against USA, a result against Iran, and potentially a result against England, I mean, if they can secure that group with 9 points, you know, it kind of tells you that it goes back to what I was just saying. You know, this is not an all and end. You know, it's not a given that England will just qualify and beat all three teams. I think USA Wales will be the juicy fixture, but I also think if you look at Friday's fixtures, England versus USA, which kicks off at 7 p.m., is a brilliant fixture. You know, I think again, very much like Wales, and how I've just explained, they could potentially walk away from 9 points if they beat all three of the nations. I think you look at England USA, that is a massive game. You know, if England doesn't beat Iran, you know, you do look at those two other fixtures, you know, England, USA, the final game. If you need points, you know, you need to beat Wales in that last game. It's a tough one. You don't want to be going into that Tuesday, the 29th game against Wales, needing to win, needing those 3 points to get out of the group. So I think in England's perspective, they need to obviously beat Iran next Monday. They have to give as good as an account against USA on the Friday. You know, there's I mean, with the World Cup, you know, no, every country is in the same boat. But you know, you look at those fixtures. You know, a game on the Monday. You know, you'd have recovery on the Tuesday, back in training Wednesday, Thursday, and then obviously you've got the game Friday, and then again, you know, you only have Saturday and Sunday really to train for the following and the final group game. So there's a tight turnaround in terms of the fixtures as well. But I do think England have, you know, one of the best chances to win the World Cup. I think, you know, like I said yesterday, my money is on Brazil and Germany to win outright. I think they are for me the two strong favorites going into the World Cup. Maybe France as well, but it all depends. I mean, Mbappe hasn't really done anything in the last, you know, he didn't do much in the Euros. So we'll get onto France obviously when we get to their group. But just looking at England's team, which I went through a couple of days ago, you look at the additions of Ben White, you look at the addition of Trent Alexander-Arnold, who's an addition that we, some pundits and some fans were talking about maybe missing out on the World Cup only a couple of months ago. So an addition to Conor Gallagher and Callum Wilson, Marcus Rashford's back in the fold as well. So I mean, you look at the squad; it's a really good, strong squad. Gareth Southgate's picked as much as he can. I still think you look at some of those defenders. You look at Connor Cody, potentially Eric Dyer. I think Tomori should be amongst them in there as well. And again, you look at maybe Ruben Loftus-Cheek ahead of Conor Gallagher. It all depends how Gareth Southgate is going to set this team up. Is he going to set it up as, five at the back, three centre-backs and the wing-backs? Or is he going to go and opt to a back four? But I don't think it gives him much option. You look at the number of defenders he's taken to Qatar with him. Can he really trust Trent Alexander-Arnold to play as a right back, a right wing back or a right back? Does he play him at centre back? Does he bring him into midfield? I'm sure he's done that before on a couple of occasions for England as well. So I don't know. I don't know how he's going to set this team up, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. You'd expect Reece James, if he was fit, to be the right wing back or the right back if it was an option for Gareth Southgate. But Kieran Trippier's there, Carl Walker's there. Both of them can play both right wing back and right back as well. But it'd be interesting who he goes for. Does he trust? I mean, looking back to some of the defensive mistakes that Trent's put in over the last couple of months, has Gareth Southgate, going into those knockout games as well, where only a win will do. You have to win the game. Is he really going to install that trust in Trent to be able to defend for 90 minutes and to track back when he needs to, help some of those defenders out as well? It's a massive question, and personally, I wouldn't play him in the team. I think if it's a back four, maybe, but if you're talking about a right wing back, someone who's got to do both sides of their duties, offensively and defensively, Trent can't be the guy that does that. I mean, you maybe look at Carl Walker, with the pace as well. And as I said, Kieran Trippier's played really well, as Newcastle, at Newcastle, he's played really well there as well. The thing with Trippier, he can play both sides as well. So I think that's a good option to have. You look at the midfield, I think, like I said earlier on last week as well, Jude Bellingham, Declan Rice, potentially if you're going to play the two as a pivot in the middle, I think I'd go with that too. I think I'd go with Jude Bellingham and Declan Rice too, who've both had, peaks in their seasons, last couple of seasons or so. I think Jude Bellingham obviously is a standout player, is a one to watch me. I know they've got Bukayo Saka as their one to watch on the screen at the moment, but I do think Jude Bellingham has a massive role to play. He's played really well for Dortmund since he's moved there from Birmingham City. He's a really good player. He's developed a lot as well. You can see that on and off the field, how much he's developed. And I think some good options off the bench. You look at Calvin Phillips, obviously coming back from a massive injury, of course, but I think he's only played one Premier League game, and I think he had 40 minutes last week against Chelsea in the Carabao Cup. But he's a good option to have off the bench. And obviously Jordan Henderson, not just on the pitch, but again, a massive voice you'd expect on off field as well, training ground, amongst that camp of players, again, the group of players that are there as well. So interesting one, Mason Mount, Conor Gallagher. I think Mason Mount was one that was always going to go anyway. He's had a relatively quiet season at Chelsea, but you go back to back player of the seasons at Chelsea. He was a given that he would go. You'd expect him to play a bit more forward as well. He might be one of those that plays in that 10 role, as opposed to in deeper in the midfield as a centre mid. I don't think we'll see that, but I think he's an option, maybe off the bench again, someone that you can bring on. And the same with Conor Gallagher. It didn't really work playing both of them for Chelsea against Newcastle at the weekend. It didn't work to have two number 10s on the pitch, as it just didn't work. So I think very good options off the bench if we need them. The forward line, I'm really impressed with. I have to admit that. I mean, Harry Kane on form, tends to take a while to warm up in tournaments. I think if we remember the Euros, I think Raheem Sterling was the one that really stood out in the group stages. And as the tournament went on, Harry Kane became into his stride and done really well. Not to say that he didn't do well in the group stages, but I felt he was dropping back more, and he does that a lot for Tottenham. He drops back into that midfield to to um, to gather the ball, bring it forward, and help those phases of play. And I think he's adapted that into his game, which is really good. But I think realistically, that you look at those players there: Raheem Sterling, Phil Foden, Marcus Rashford, James Madison. They're all going to get you assists. We need Harry Kane in the box. Callum Wilson, if he comes on, we need these players in the box, to be a target man, to be the one up front, to lead the line as well. And I think you look at Raheem Sterling, who plays really well. Yeah, again, his form slightly dipped at Chelsea since I think he scored his last goal in August, I think for Chelsea in the Premier League, but he got one against Zagreb not too long ago in the Champions League. But you look at Saka, Foden, Madison, they're all going to get you assists. They're all going to get you assists. So I think whoever plays that number 9 role, you'd expect it to be Harry Kane, is going to definitely get goals if they're in the right position. They make the right run. I think this crop of players is the first time in a very long time. I know obviously we got to the final of the Euros, but I go into this World Cup with expectations to, if not win, at least get as far as we did in the Euros, to the final. And looking at that squad, I mean, there's no real weaknesses in there. Yes, there's players that you potentially not take to the World Cup, but there's enough depth and strength and quality amongst defenders, midfielders, and forwards. Massive question mark about goalkeeper. Does he start Aaron Ramsdale? I mean, I think based on form, I would probably go with Aaron Ramsdale. You look at Jordan Pickford and the form and where Everton are in the league. I know obviously it's not just down to the goalkeeper, but on form, you might have to put Aaron Ramsdale ahead of Jordan Pickford. But let me know your thoughts in the comments about who you would start in your first game against Iran next Monday. Massive game. Let's talk slightly about Iran as well. Again, a team that potentially we don't really know much about. There'll be one there, I think, who plays for Armonia, which will impress Stel. So Stel, hopefully, if you haven't already checked out his YouTube channel, Shoot the Defense, a lot of content goes on there as well. Armonia, did not know that there was a player that was playing within Cyprus that is from Iran. So, I mean, again, they've got some players that are playing within Europe, by Leverkusen there as well. Couple of players in Turkey, one from Brentford, Feyenoord. So, they are dispersed quite a lot. AEK Athens, Dinamo Zagreb as well. So, again, I don't really know much about their squad. I don't want to come on here and say that I do. I do think it's very disrespectful to just assume that England or whoever the countries will just beat these teams. I think some of these teams that we're not familiar with stand just as good a chance as any to qualify out their groups. So we have to credit them. As I said, they've got a lot of players that are playing with across Europe as well. So you can't expect them to, just because we don't really know much about them, that they won't do well. I think that's one of the key things. But I hold my hands up. I don't know much about Iranian football. I don't know much about the team. I have not followed their qualification route to the World Cup either. USA, yeah, I'm going to be honest. I still think USA have a really good chance in this World Cup. Obviously, they've pinpointed Christian Pulisic as the key player, and Dest as the one to watch. I agree with that 100%, but not just those two. You could say, Aaron Long, who plays for the New York Red Bulls, is a really good defender as well. Cameron Carter-Vickers, who I've watched a lot of at Celtic in the SPL this season as well. Tim Ream, who I watched the other day and again watched for Fulham a lot. Anthony Robertson, another good. I mean, their defense is really good. Joe Scally as well for Borussia Mönchengladbach as well, really good player. The midfield as well. Again, Tyler Adams. You look at Weston McKennie as well from Juventus, and they've got some really good players in there as well. Brendan Harrison as well, one who's done relatively okay at Leeds. Again, going forward, Christian Pulisic, Tim Way, Josh Sargent, again, Jordan Morris from Seattle, all these players that, at some point, have had really good parts and spells in their own domestic season as well. So I look at this team, I think it can cause problems. I'm not saying they're going to top the group, but I think, if they can beat Wales, which I think is doable, the England USA, you'd expect England to come out on top, but just some of the names I've reeled off there. And to be honest, defensively, however Southgate sets his team up, it has to be spot on throughout the whole tournament. So any mistakes at the back, any mistakes in the game, USA still stand a chance as anyone does in this tournament. So I think if USA can beat Wales, maybe get a point off England and then go into that Iran game, maybe needing the 3 points, they stand just as good as chance as anyone to qualify out the group. So very good, very interesting. I think this is one of the more juicier, tastier groups out of all of them. And yeah, I think they've got just as much chance as the next team we're going to talk about, which is Wales. Rob Page again has chosen a really good, strong squad of Welsh players. The key standout is obviously Gareth Bale, who I think is now playing in LA for LA. Playing in LA. Um, went there to make sure he kept himself fit for this World Cup. So I think you look at the team again, very experienced. You look at Danny Ward, who's come into form. Leicester City didn't start the season very well, but has come into form. Looks like a good defender, a good goalkeeper now. You look at their defenders. Neco Williams. I mean, in my opinion, he was never good for Liverpool. A bit of a liability, likes to pick up the odd card again, can be quite clumsy going into challenges. So I think he'll be a risk going into some games. But you look at Ben Davies, who again played really well for Tottenham, Cabango for Swansea City as well. Ethan Ampadu is having another really good loan spell in Italy. Midfielders, obviously Aaron Ramsey. One team that I haven't followed this much this season is Nice, who he's now playing for. Joe Allen's had a really good season. Harry Wilson. There's some good players in that midfield. And obviously going forward, look at Dan James, who, the pace of him the other night against Manchester United was frightening. He scored a brilliant goal. And Gareth Bale, and we know what he can do. Kiefer Moore, another one. So they've got some good players in that team that I think will be able to give a good run out in this competition. I think that they have everything within them to progress out the group. I think it's a really difficult group to judge and call. You look at the group itself, it's a massive group to call. There's going to be some really difficult games and fixtures amongst there. And as I said earlier, the turnaround for these fixtures is, we're talking days. We're talking days. Obviously, you've got to include travel time into that as well. The amount of travel that some of these players are going to have to do to the stadium and back to the hotel, to the training complex, and then back to another stadium and then back to the trade. So you've got to factor all that in as well. Rest, recovery, back to training. So there's a lot to take in there. But let's quickly jump back into our groups again, just so we can quickly reconfirm who is in Group C. Is the other group that we're going to be quickly talking about today as well. So Argentina, another big one. Lionel Messi, could this be his final World Cup? You look at Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Poland. Again, massive group. As I said before, South American fixture in there as well with Mexico and Argentina. Poland again. You look at Lewandowski, final World Cup potentially. Does he really want to go out the group stages? Are they all going to get their all? So I think this is again another really good, tasty group for anyone who's interested and isn't obviously looking to cheer on England and maybe cheering on their own home nations as well. But let's have a quick look at the fixture list and the running for that one as well, because again, just like any other group, there's going to be a lot of congested fixtures, a lot of turnover around how quickly these fixtures are going to be coming thick and fast as well. So let's start with the squads as we did with Group B. Obviously, Argentina, I mean, they are a team off the back of winning the Copa America last year. Messi finally getting his hands on a international tournament trophy at last. He comes into this one hoping he can potentially go on and win the World Cup, something that I'm sure he's potentially dreamed about for many years. The captain of Argentina to lift that. So you look at the squad. Let's have a quick look at their squad. Obviously Lionel Messi's the key one. You got Julian Alvarez, who's currently playing at Manchester City, scored a brilliant goal against Chelsea in the Carabao Cup. Ran off the sort of half save from Mendy, but brilliant. Played really well for Manchester City. Goalkeepers, I would say Martinez is probably going to be the one that starts, but really good squad. You look at the defenders as well. Otamendi, ex-Manchester City player as well. Martinez, who's having a really good season for Manchester United. Tagliafico, another good player once at Ajax, I think, as well. Who I used to watch a lot whilst he was at Ajax as well. So their defenders are really good. Acuna for Sevilla as well. Good players in that squad in defense as well. So, they have just as good a chance as anyone to go on and progress and potentially get further, quarter, semi-finals, or potentially the finals, might go on to win it. But, Paredes in midfield, you look at De Paul, again for Atletico, Gomez for Sevilla, McAllister for Brighton. There's a lot of good strength and depth in that midfield. Really good squad, made up of some really good players as well. So, the forward line for me is what scares me about Argentina, because they've got some really good strikers in there. You look at Dybala, Messi, Di Maria, Gonzalez from Fiorentina as well, Martinez from Inter Milan, Alvarez, as I just mentioned. These are really good strikers. They know where the back of the net is. Di Maria, again, another one who's a veteran. He's been around for a while. And that's one thing I didn't really talk about in the Group B with England as well. The experience. You look at Wales, they've got Gareth Southgate as their experience. I suppose you look at maybe Jordan Henderson for England as one of the more experienced going into this tournament. Maybe Raheem Sterling, who I think has played 10 years for England as well at the moment. But that to me is a really good squad, and I think we didn't do the fixtures, but looking at those fixtures, I mean, they have a really nice run into this. I think you look at Argentina against Saudi Arabia. Again, you would expect Saudi Arabia to have a difficult time against Argentina based on how the two squads are based at the moment. But going into that final game for Argentina, if they do need points, you look at Poland against Argentina, a team that we're going to talk about shortly. They're going to need to be on their game, and I think those final games for all nations, all countries, is going to be a difficult one, because you don't want to be going into that final game. Both games kick off at the same time as well. You don't want to be going into that final game needing points to progress. But quickly, as we wrap this one up, again, Saudi Arabia. I do know some of these players only because of the World Club Cup and Chelsea being in there. I don't know enough about them to talk about them, but I would love someone to come into the chat, into the comment section. If you're from Saudi Arabia, please give me a rundown on this team, because I'd love to know who out of here is the team. I mean, they've picked out Al Dosari as the player that is the key player to watch out for. So if anyone's from the Saudi Arabia nation wants to give me a rundown on this, please do so, because I think just as much as any of the other ones that I've spoken about in terms of other countries, this is one of those that I just don't have the knowledge and background on. So it'd be interesting to see who out of the team for Saudi Arabia is ones to watch out for. So give me some idea in the comments if you're watching this after the live. Mexico, again, another good team. I do think Mexico, as much as they've got a good team, I think they might struggle. I think they might struggle to get out. And I look at their team. I think Lozano, I think, is a good striker. Raul Jimenez, we know, a very good striker as well. Gutierrez for PSV is another good player. Alvarez, who plays for Ajax, is a very good player. I think they've got good players. I just don't know if they've got a good enough team to be able to compete with Argentina, to potentially compete with Poland, another really good squad that Poland will have, which we'll get onto shortly. But you look at their fixture list, you look at who they've got to play. So Poland's not it's a real two difficult games against Poland. Then they've got to play Argentina. Again, if they lose both of those, I mean, that they're all almost out of the group, depending on how results go. But if they don't beat Poland, they don't beat Argentina, which is the key game for them on the 26th of November, Mexico potentially will go out. And, I think they've got some really good players, as I've just said. I just don't think they've got a good enough team to potentially go beyond these group stages. So, yeah, you look at maybe Argentina topping the group 100%, but I think it's going to be difficult for Mexico at this World Cup, if I'm honest. And the reason I say that is because this team here, I like this team. I really do like this team. And I think, Poland have some really good players in the team. Obviously the standouts that, I'm sure if you look on here now, you'll be able to see for yourself. But their strikers are really good. They've got a really good balance in defense as well. Some key standout players, I think, for them in midfield as well, that I've had the joys of watching over the Europa League and Europa League Conference, Champions League as well. So I think they've got a really good squad. I think they have enough. Obviously, their key player that they've picked out on the website here is Lewandowski. That is common. Obviously, it's a no-brainer. But I think, again, looking at their fixtures as well, look at Poland. That middle game of Saudi Arabia, I think, will save them. I think if they can beat Mexico and beat Saudi Arabia, they go into the Argentina game with their tails up slightly. They could, again, potentially cause Argentina some problems. So knowing that they need to potentially win that game, that final game on the 30th of November, potentially just gives them a bit more to go into and try and get some points out of it. But I think it's going to be, those two groups for me are the two groups that I look at and I think, yeah, we're going to get some decent games out of them. I look at them and I think they're really good games, really good fixtures. As I said before, I'm looking forward to this World Cup now. If you haven't done so already, I'm going to keep saying this. So if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. Please give this video a thumbs up. Let me know your thoughts in the comments as well about Group B and Group C of the World Cup. Qatar 2022 kicks off in a couple of days. I'm looking forward to it. Tomorrow we'll look at Group D, which is a very good group. So let's quickly show who is in Group D, which is a relatively good group. You look at France, Denmark, Tunisia, and Australia. Obviously, Mbappe in that group as well. Denmark with Christian Eriksen in it as well. So there'll be some good topics of discussion in tomorrow as well. As always, make sure you're back here, you subscribe, you tell your friends to tell your friends, and share the videos on Twitter. If you get onto the link in the description, it'll have our link to Twitter on there. Make sure you go on there. Yeah, spread the word, retweet for me and all of that stuff. Until tomorrow, thank you very much for watching, and we'll be back very, very soon. Thanks.